essentially.
All right, let's stand and I'll call the meeting to order of the Central Community School System, and I'll lead us in prayer and pledge. Our divine Heavenly Father, we have so much to be thankful for, and we ask you to continue to bless us and bless this school system as we begin this new year. Be with all the kids and the teachers, their parents, the administrators. Just allow them to be able to guide them to be able to have the kind of year that we know we can have. Always keeping you in mind and keeping things that would be in your will in the actions that we take. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. Join me in the pledge. Roll call, please, Ben. Here.
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 Howard. Here. Ms. Boyle. Here. Ms. Brown. Here. Dr. Carter.
Here. First order of business is to consider approval of the minutes from the regular school board meeting held Monday, July the 11th. I'll entertain a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
And we'll second. Any discussion, board members? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, without objection, then the minutes are approved. Next item is to receive the superintendent's report on personnel. Dr. Fountain.
So, Mr. President, we do have a couple of reports here. First of all, we have a report of some resignations, and we have 10 of those. You can see those on the report. We also have some reports of appointments. We have a number of these on here, and I checked with the principals. It was day one, so I knew we wouldn't have many people show up tonight, but I did want to mention Miss Alice Frank, who will be a kindergarten teacher at Bellingrath Hills Elementary, who is here. So would you please stand up, Ms. Frank, and let us recognize you. You want to tell us anything briefly about you?
I'm excited to start. I'm going to be kindergarten at Bellingrath. I did kindergarten many years ago, and I'm excited to be back in it. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you have any others?
I don't think we had any more. I checked with the principals. I believe that was it on all of our new hires. We also have some report of some reassignments. And then finally, we do have one item that would require a vote of the board. This is a leave. And this is at the very end of that report. This is for Ms. Carrie Lawson, who is child nutrition technician at Central Middle School. And this is a leave without pay request for the first semester of this school year. So I would ask the board's.
I'll entertain a motion to grant her leave.
I move we approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion, board members? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, then that leave is granted.
And then the only other piece of personnel report, one more contract for an AP, and you also have that on there, and that's just a report. And then, Mr. President, that would conclude the personnel report.
Thank you, sir. Next item of business is to receive a report from the Human Resources Policy Committee on Wednesday the 27th. That would be Ms. Brown.
If we move through these quickly, I hope you're mindful that we discuss these things in committee meeting, and we discuss them thoroughly. So if we seem to go through them so quickly, you think, well, they're not even discussing, they're just moving right through. You need to come to the committee meetings, because that's where the action happens. The committee recommends, we met, the Human Resource Committee met on Wednesday, July the 27th, and it reports the following. The committee recommends approval of the revised job description for the Director of Accountability and Federal Programs position as presented by the staff. Mr. President, I so move.
I'll second. Have a second. Have any discussion from the board? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, then that revised job description is approved.
The committee recommends approval of the employee handbook for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as presented by the staff. Mr. President, I so move. I'll second that.
We have a second. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none, and any comments from the audience? Without objection, then that employee handbook is approved.
The committee recommends approval of the personnel evaluation plan for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as presented by the staff. Mr. President, I so move.
We have a second. We have a second. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none, and any comments from the audience? Without objection, then the personnel evaluation committee is approved.
The committee also recommends approval of the organizational flow chart for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as presented by the staff. Mr. President, I so move.
We have a second. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none, any comments from the audience? Hearing none, then without objection, the organizational flow chart is approved.
The committee received a first reading on the following new and revised policies: on school board ethics, on school bus scheduling and routing, equal employment opportunity, employee dress code, equal educational opportunities, student absences and excuses, bullying and hazing, student dress code, discipline, expulsion, student health services, administration of medication, expectant and parenting students, and student voter registration. This is a first reading of the following new revised policies. Mr. President, that concludes my report.
You want to tell them what first reading means? It's got a lot of people here that may not know.
You tell them.
Okay, we have a policy that says when we have a new policy, we have what we call a first reading, which gives everybody a chance to look at it, read it, and if they have comments, to make the comments, and then when we will adopt it the next board meeting, which is approximately 30 days.
And those policies are on the website, so if you'd like to go, some nice bedtime reading, you're welcome to do that. And you can comment to any of the school board members.
And if you don't have access to that website, you can get them at the school board office. I get my board and that concludes your report. Okay. The next one is receive a report from the Finance Committee held on Wednesday, July the 27th. That was Ms. Atkinson, who is the chair of that.
The Finance Committee met on Wednesday, July 27, 2022, and reports the following. The committee recommends approval of a $1,000 stipend for event catering, it's our culinary program, and a $1,000 stipend for district videographer. Mr. President, I so move.
Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion on that or questions more than that? Any comments from the audience? Hearing no comments, then without objection, that stipend and extracurricular, both those two stipends are approved.
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item is to receive a report from the Curriculum Instruction and Accountability Student Services Committee, which was held on Wednesday, the 27th.
The Curriculum Instruction Accountability Student Service Committee met on Wednesday, July 27th, and reports the following. The discussion was held on the updates to the discipline procedures for the 22-23 school year. That is a report only and requires no action. The committee recommends approval to add the discipline procedures to the student handbook for the years 2022-23. Mr. President, I so move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion, board members? Any comments from the audience?
Was that the fighting policy?
Thank you, pardon?
Was that the fighting and filming policy?
Well, that's part of it. It has to do with all the,
It's the whole thing.
yes, that is part of,
Yeah,
Just for the record, so we can make sure you live in the schools.
Yeah, 1575 parameter. The disciplinary policy, the only thing that I really just want to comment on, I still just take a little objection to the fact that the filming policy is the same as if you got into a fight. You know, if two people conspire to film something, for example, during the community, there's an RS code for that. Revised statute, I think it's 1412, and that's criminal conspiracy. There's a law for that to further that. But we're going to suspend filming something. Are they doing something wrong? 100%. But does it need to be at the same level as the kids that are actually talking? I just take a little bit of objection to that. That's just what I feel about it. I understand how I feel about it. I just think kind of doing this physical justice.
Thank you for your comments. We did discuss that thoroughly, and what we're presenting is, was recommended by the committee. But, any other comments? Hearing no other comments, then without objection from the board, and that is approved.
It also recommends approval to allow girls to wear 2 pair of earrings. Earrings cannot be greater than the 1 inch in diameter. Hanging earrings cannot be wider than 1 inch in diameter or extend more than 1 inch from the earlobe. Basically, that is the same. Boys are allowed to no hooks are allowed. No other visible body piercings are permitted. Mr. President, I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion, board members? Any comments? Any comments from the audience?
So does this relax what we had already decided on, or is this a change to a change, or I got confused as to what we were doing?
We didn't change the girls.
It would actually only take the boys, and the prior one was the boys who had 2 pairs of studs. And now it was
I hate to degrade our standard. I hate that.
Did you voice that objection at the committee meeting?
No, I didn't, because it was, I didn't see it on any of the information. It was like at the last minute, here it came. And I thought about it, and I regretted not saying anything
That's okay.
at the meeting.
I just wanted to make sure that you weren't changing your mind. Oh, you can even change your mind, that's all right. So, do you have any other comments from the board members? Then, we'll take well, you're the only objection?
comments from the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Comments from the audience? No one has any comments. Okay, we have 1 objection and 6 approvals.
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Next item is to consider approval of engagement letters from Amnesty Bourgeois. That's something we do every year, so you gonna?
Good evening, Board. I'm Trey Sanders. I'm an audit partner with Amnesty Bourgeois that we perform the audit for you guys. Been performing it for a number of years now. What I have presented before you guys tonight, I'll kind of hit some of the highlights. The letters are kind of long, so I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to hit the highlights in them. There's 3 engagement letters. The first engagement letter I'll go over in just a moment is the audit, the regular audit that we perform of your financial statements and issue an opinion on. And there's also an engagement letter in here The legislative auditor brought back the statewide agreed upon procedures. It's about 20-something extra procedures that we have to do each year, and they broke it up into different categories. They suspended them last year, or maybe the last 2 years because of COVID, but they decided, hey, we're gonna bring them back because we're kind of beyond COVID, we wanna make sure everybody's still doing things the right way. So there's an engagement letter for that. And then there's also an engagement letter in here for your school activity funds. We do some agreed upon procedures on your school activity funds. You're required every year to review your school activity funds, policies and procedures, to make sure they're operating properly, and we perform that procedure for you. So I'm going to go over the audit letter with you first. It's the really thick letter. What the audit engagement letter kind of tells you is that it tells you you're going to come in and audit the financial statements. It is a 3-year engagement letter. It covers from 22, 23, and 24. It's a typical 3-year engagement letter that we normally do. And we come in, we perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, also any standards the legislative auditor puts out there, any laws and things like that. Once we're done, we will issue an opinion on those financial statements. Also during that process, we look at your internal controls and your compliance with laws and regulations, and we'll issue an opinion, not an opinion, but a letter on that at the end of the audit to tell you if anything came to our attention that we need to bring to the board. You guys also receive a significant amount of federal money. The federal money comes in, and within our regular audit of your financial statements, we're required to do what we call a single audit. So we'll come in, and we do this pretty much every year because you receive more than $750,000 in federal money. We come in and we select some of your larger federal programs that you have. And we actually come in and suggest the compliance with the procedures of the program, and also the internal controls to make sure they're in place, proper and proper. We actually do issue an opinion on your compliance, so we will actually issue an additional report on that. So that's kind of standard. Every year we do that kind of stuff. There is, if you go through this letter, it looks a little bit different than it did in the past on the audit. Our auditing standards changed now, but we have to dig into a little bit more deeper detail into whether there's any kind of going concern issues. The school system here is very financially stable, but some entities are not. So we'd have to project out a year in advance to see how they're doing. That's some new stuff we get into a little bit more detail. There's also some information in here, some of the things that we consider higher risk during the audit process. Most of the time, management, there's always the possibility of management override of controls that might be out there. There might be a misappropriation or assets. We've always done that. We don't always say that in the letter, but now our standards say, hey, we got to let you guys know that we're considering these things. So that is in this letter. You know, I'm not going to read it in detail to you, but that's the audit engagement letter, and that's what we're proposing to do. I'll go over the next one if that's the best way. The one in here is on the statewide agreed upon procedures. It's a little bit smaller letter, and we're doing a proposal on it also for the 22, 23, and 24 fiscal years in the same alignment with the audit of the financial statements. The statewide agreed upon procedures, we'll issue a report once we're finished with them. All those procedures that we're going to do are listed in this engagement letter. Once we are done, we're not going to issue an opinion, we're going to tell you the results of that testing. All the test work that we did and those results will be in that report, and that's what we'll do. We look at everything from your policies and procedures. We've got a couple extra steps this year. We're going to make sure you guys are your disaster recovery plan, you have one written policy in place, you're following that policy. And also, 2 years ago, the state put in a new law about sexual harassment prevention training. That's some new testing we got to do this year to make sure everybody's had that training and you've done the required reporting that's there. We look at bank recs, a little more detail on bank recs, look at your board meetings, make sure you get the financial statements. Dig a little deeper in collections as far as the kind of money you collect, and we also look at disbursements, credit card, travel, just stuff you normally wouldn't get into as much detail. That's what these procedures do, and I believe the goal there is to make sure that legislative auditor has seen in the past that some of this stuff they feel like it would have been dug into a little bit deeper, and may have prevented something. And I believe that's truly the reason these things are in place. But that's the statewide agreed upon procedures. Again, we'll issue a report and kind of tell you what the results of that testing was. The last one is we are going to look at 2 of the schools. You're required again to look at 1/3 of your school activity funds each year and test them to make sure they're following all the procedures that you have in place. You have a policy manual in place that tells them everything they need to do from collecting money to football games to how to make deposits and everything like that, and bank recs, how they're supposed to come up here and stuff like that. Well, you're required every 3 years to attest or look at 1/3 of those school activity funds every year. And so what we're doing this year, we'll be looking at Tanglewood Elementary School and Central Intermediate School. And we'll go in, we got this procedure pretty much outlined and kind of given to us from what's been done in the past in the legislative auditor's office. And we'll come in and do those procedures. And again, at the end of the results, when we come here and present the report, we're going to present a report that tells you the results of that assessment. If anything came to our attention, they're not following a particular procedure, Bankruptcy not signed off on, the product wasn't properly handled, we'll tell you the results of that. That's what it is. There's no opinion or anything, it's just telling you the results of it. So, both of the uniform procedures, we follow the standards that are out there, and we also can do them in accordance with government auditing standards. We follow all that kind of stuff. Just to let you know, we are independent of the school system. We're not connected in any way, shape, or form. That's why we call us independent auditors. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I can dig into a little bit more detail if you want to, but it's pretty much stuff we've done in the past. It's nothing really out of the ordinary.
If we get a motion and second, then we can ask questions.
I move to approve using, as we have in
Okay, that, we're approving the engagement letter.
I'll second.
I think we already did. Don't- She seconded it. We got a motion and a second. Okay. Board members, do you have any questions? Comments? We have been through these. Quite good.
And please keep this in mind. This is also your opportunity throughout the whole process. If you have any questions or concerns, that's what we're here for. Bring something to our attention or something like that. We're always open to talk about anything. So.
Appreciate you. Always do a good job for us.
Any comments from the audience? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Board members, I'm going to make a decision that we handle all four of these together unless someone has an objection to that. Huh? I'm sorry.
It's 3 letters.
I'm looking at
Three letters, there's one on my letter.
okay. I'm sorry, but I just,
I think we can do that, right?
I
That
don't
was my
see-
motion to do
We can't
all
do them
three
all
of them.
together, Tracy, like you said you would.
yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion, board members? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, then without objection, the approval of the engagement letters is made. Okay, the next item is to consider a change order for Central High renovation project. Dr. Fountain has.
So, Mr. President, we actually have 2 change orders on the agenda, so they obviously be handled separately. But first of all, I'm going to tell you where the money will come for the change orders, and then we can break down each of them. And of course, the first is the Central High School. So before explaining the change orders, the total for the Central High School change order and for the Central Office project total around $300,000 approximately, and you'll hear more detail in a minute. The important point is that none of the money for either of these changes will have to come from the general fund budget. All the money will come from our capital outlay budget. So we went back and looked at this, Barbara, looked at where we stand with our capital outlay budget. And right now we have $199,148 remaining in this capital outlay budget from last year that is unencumbered and is not designated for any particular project. So that would cover the change order for Central High School. 2 years ago, whenever we refinanced our half-cent sales tax bond, we received a lower rate on the bond than we had previously. So at that time, the board designated any extra funds that were received from that half-cent sales tax to go to the capital outlay budget. So after last year's continued strong sales tax revenue, we'll be adding approximately $1 million to the capital outlay budget from the half-cent sales tax overages that will go into the debt service for this year. So therefore, we would use $100,000 of that million for the central office change order. So that I'm trying to set the stage on where the money's coming from. This will not come from this year's general fund budget or any of that. Again, it's coming from the capital outlay budget. So the first change order on the table was the Central High School change order. So for this change order, we have a couple of large items and we have a couple of smaller items. The biggest is a change order for $114,152. This is for items that we requested the design team add, more outlets, wireless access points, and also some security camera rough-ins. This was cut a year ago when we had to find cost savings. If you remember, really a summer a year ago, when we were working through the COVID challenges and the budget challenges in this project, we had to cut some things, and this is one. These are items that will have to be done at some point, and now is the time we can put those back in. We also requested an additional storage room and shelving, new VCT flooring in certain classrooms to match other classrooms who did receive new flooring, and also adding the divider curtain back in the gym. That was one of the cost savings, but that is really not a nice to have. We really need to have that. The cost of all those items is $50,371. And that also includes some door design changes and additional doors required by the state fire marshal. We're also asking for $7,910 to add a scoreboard and video board in the new gymnasium. Some of this was paid for out of our contingency, but not all of it. We're asking for an additional $5,019 for owner requested staining of the basketball court lanes and border with lettering in the border. We're asking for $5,000 to paint the stucco maroon around the old entrance to the high school. This will add some pop to the exterior piece there. Finally, this would still leave $17,548 in the owner's contingency. So in summary, I'm asking the board's approval to move forward with this $200,000 change order for the Central High School renovation. And I can answer questions, and that's one of David's here too if we have any specific.
I just want to make a comment for the public. This, I said, sales tax overage. We really were very fortunate last year to, when we refinanced everything, interest rates were so low. And we were able to bond out a lot more, and we actually got a lot more when we, also from the other bonds that we did for the high school renovation. But the way it works, we just can't give that money back to the public. We wish we could, but that's not the way the law works. The law works is that money has to be used in capital outlay expenditures. And so that's why we allow that money overages to go into our capital outlay budget, so that we don't have to rob from the general fund. So this is just something we expect is going to, as long as our sales taxes keep going, Mayor Merrill, which we're very, very appreciative of. That this will be hopefully an annual thing, that money will be there that will come from that can go into our capital, so that we can fix things and do things. And a lot of this here that is in this change order is some of the stuff we wanted to do originally that we had to cut because we had to meet a certain, budget. But now that, things are looking good, sales tax came in strong, and we have the money in the capital outlay that's going to be funded through that overages. It's a nice way of being able to fund that without having to rob the general fund.
Are you making a
Yeah,
motion?
I'll make the motion we approve this change order.
And I'll second it.
You second, okay. Do the board, do you have any other comments?
Well done.
Yeah, you explained it so people. Okay, any comments from the audience? Hearing no comments, then without objection, the change order at Central High School renovation is approved. The next one is similar. It's a change order on the Central Office Construction Project. Dr. Fallon.
Okay, so on the central office and stadium project, the first change order is for $25,014.13. The west side of the site needs more dirt to raise the paving to the appropriate height to facilitate proper drainage. It has always been known that the amount of dirt needed for the site might not be fulfilled by dirt pulled from the new pond area. The cost shown reflects bringing in dirt from all sites. The second change order is for $71,616.04. During the course of construction, it's been discovered that there was a need to add dirt and drainage materials to properly drain the area near the new entrance inside the stadium around where the old concession stand used to be. We want to make certain that this area does not flood when it rains as it has in the past. We know this is a big expense. changes at the central office project have primarily come from what's under the ground. I mean, there have not been many issues as we've gone up, it's been what's underneath. We've already come back with a couple of things they found in the dirt that had to be hauled out. So what we're asking is for the board's approval of this change order in the amount of $100,000. And this second one, the big one for $71,000, that really is, even in the past, that area when you walk in the stadium where the old concession stand was, after a rain, it would puddle right there. And I don't know if you've looked at the paving, it is elevated, and the drainage, that's gonna continue to be a challenge. And we talked about that, and they've looked at it, and we feel like if we don't fix that, that is, that's gonna be something that's gonna not be good as we go forward. So, any questions on that?
Dirt's expensive right now.
Yes, yeah.
It's all in the dirt, really. And the gas and all that stuff, and that's what's unfortunate. But that's the place you usually run into trouble, is on the ground, because you don't know what to do. And we've had that happen on several projects. Do I have a motion to approve the?
I'll make a motion to approve the second change order for $4,900.
We have a second, all right. Any further comments, board members? Any comments from the audience?
Sorry.
Need a lift?
Christopher here. It was my understanding that the office was a GMP, guaranteed maximum price. Is the work that's being done outside of the original scope or outside of the original footprint? If so, why is this included in guaranteed maximum price?
Well, I'll try my hand at that. With the guaranteed maximum price, you're guaranteed the scope of what is, when you approve the guaranteed maximum price, it tells you what that scope is. If you find other issues, or just like with the dirt work and things like that, if there are additional things under the ground that were not included in that original scope, then they have to come back, and that's what the change order does. It actually increases the GMP. So for what we approve with the GMP, they do complete that scope of work for that guaranteed maximum price.
Well, I understand that if it's in the original footprint, they had a chance to look at that for the GMP to get their pricing, and then you yourself said a minute ago that you can see it beforehand. So I'm a contractor. I've done GMP contracts at the Superdome because there's so many unknowns. You don't know what the building was built in the 60s or 70s. I just understand how this is an unknown when it sounds like it was an unknown that we had flooding issues there, and now we're getting almost $100,000 change order for something. But if it didn't compact, then that's a, if we call it whatever we use our fill and it didn't compact.
No, and I'll say this, I don't know on this one drainage piece if that was even included in the original.
It was not.
It was not.
It was something I came back and just,
So
don't was a
outside
problem.
the original footprint?
Yes, no,
Okay.
not the
So
drainage
this should happen.
in between
That's
stations.
all I did.
And some of the dirt, we dug a pond, I don't know if you've seen the pond, it's got a lot of sand in it, so we didn't get as much dirt out of the pond as we wanted, so that's the main reason we're having to bring more dirt in. It's really wet and sandy down there.
So our compaction wasn't as good.
Mhm.
Okay, makes sense. Yep.
Any further comment? Then without objection, the change order to the central office construction project is approved. All right, we need a discussion on the revised policy of D74A, bids and quotations. Dr. Fountain.
So, Mr. President, Forethought Policies, who helps us with our policies, sent a policy update just a couple of weeks ago after our committee meeting. And this is an update, just like earlier, all of those policy updates are all from the legislative session that has just occurred. All of those changes were because we had to make them. But they also, Act 204 of this past session raised the limits for bids on materials and supplies. The law now provides that the threshold goes from $30,000 to $60,000. So you don't have to put it out for bid unless it's $60,000 now. So purchases exceeding 30 but lower than 60, you can make by just obtaining quotes. So basically, they've raised this. Now, normally, we would put this through our first reading, second reading process, but in talking to the business department, our policy can be more restrictive than state policy, it can be less. Instead of waiting 60 days to essentially get this on the books, we felt like it would be better to go ahead and move forward so that we can take advantage of this if we need to, because it's just much easier to get 3 quotes versus put it out for bid if it's in that round.
I just have a question.
Yeah, so, yes, we had done this before, but so the way this would have to work is we would first need a motion and a second to temporarily suspend the policy adoption procedures to allow the first reading of this revised policy. So we would have to have a motion and a second, and then so that would have to pass to suspend it for only this item, and then we would be able to adopt the item. And again, this is, we're not trying to slide something through. This is something that will benefit us potentially as we're, getting bids and quotes and so forth. And again, we're just trying to save the 60 days on this. This is something that we have to change essentially from the past legislative session.
I make a motion that we suspend our policy of policies, with this one exception tonight.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion or questions, board members? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, then that motion to suspend that, we need to roll call. We need a roll call, we do need a roll call.
Okay, motion to suspend, Dr. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Dr. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Boyer?
Yes.
Ms. Browning?
Yes.
Dr. Gardner?
Yes.
All in favor?
Move we approve the new policy as presented.
I'll second that.
And you second. Any other discussion, board members? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, then that is approved. I think that does it. Okay, the next item is to grant an employee permission to be employed as a tutor while on leave without pay. Dr. Brown.
Okay, so this falls under the category of, I'm not certain why we have to do this other than it's our policy. So we have an employee who is on leave without pay while she works toward her teaching certification. We have a policy that states that an employee on leave without pay cannot work unless it is approved by the school board. This employee would like to work as a tutor on the side while she completes her school. I have no problem with this for sure, as she's working to finish school, so I just have to bring this to the board to get your permission because of this policy.
I move that we accept her ability to be able to work. And I'll second.
Okay, we're granting that employee permission. Any other comments?
She's working off campus, right? She's not on campus.
Yes.
as a student.
Yes.
Then
Any other questions? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, then that permission is granted. Next item is to consider approval of the revised calendar for the school year. Dr. Fountain.
So, Mr. President, LRS 1:55 was amended in 2020. Provision A8 states, the following shall be days of public rest and legal holidays and half holidays. First Tuesday after the first Monday in November, an even number of years for public schools in the parish where the parish governing authority has established a polling place at a public school. So we always close for presidential elections. Of course, the last one was in 2020. We made the calendar for this year. Honestly, we were unaware of this change. I don't know how it just slipped through. We normally do not close on the other even numbered year between presidential elections. But we learned of this over the summer after we had adopted the calendar. So I'm asking the board's approval to change our school calendar. And so what we'll do is on Tuesday, November the 8th, we will just close. We talked about should we move another day here or there, but we sent the calendar out and people have made plans on things, so we did not want to change anything on the calendar. So what we'll do is simply just close on Tuesday, November the 8th.
We had other days.
Yeah, we have like 3.8 days built into our calendar already, so this will put us at 2.8. So, we like to have those buffer days in case we have to close for weather or whatever, but We don't have a choice on this one, so if our schools are used as a polling place, which they are, then we have to close, so we'll have to continue to do this moving forward. But I would ask your vote to allow us to amend the
Well,
calendar.
the only thing, we could put another day in there, but I don't think we ought to, not until we,
Well, I'd like to make a motion, since I have a ninth grader back there, to close school on Tuesday, November 8th.
I'll second it.
Good, Mom.
any other comments? Board members? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, then the revised schedule is approved. The next item is to receive information on the proposed Central Community System Multi-Use Activity Center. Most of you probably don't even know what that is. Funded by capital project. Dr. Fountain, explain that.
Okay, so really what I want to do is just kind of bring to the board where we are, what we know. There's still a lot. We're in the infant stages of this, but I'm going to kind of give a rundown of where we are. And then we can have a discussion, talk about it. I just kind of want to get it on the table to make sure we can have a discussion about it. But, so as most of you are aware, Senator Bodie White, who has done so much for the city of Central and our school system, has been working on this Central Community Sports, he worked on the Central Community Sports Complex and Central Office Project, which is what we're working on now. And we received nearly $3.5 million in state funding for that. That's been amazing. But he also has secured in the last legislative session approximately $12 million for the construction of a multi-use activity center in Central. The $12 million includes $1 million in cash, $2 million in priority 2, which will likely be bonded in October of this year. The final $9.8 million will be in P5, which will likely come next year, if I understand this correct. The possibilities are very exciting, and we have a lot to figure out in the coming months. That's an and statement. It is very exciting, and we have a lot to figure out. I would love to work on a cooperative endeavor agreement with the city to partner with us on this venture somehow, some way. One requirement of receiving this money is that a match of 20% is required. This could be in the property where the activity center is located. Also, there may be other ways to work the match requirement based on what the senator is saying. Two of the pressing issues are, number one, where would the activity center be located? And number two, what would it look like? How is it laid out? What is the structure of it? So we are planning to utilize our Facilities and Equipment Committee, which is a standing committee, to oversee this project. We are working with our architects, Grace A. Bear Curtis, to set up a trip to the arena in Sulphur and other locations later this month. We'd love for the mayor and possibly other council members to be involved with this trip, as well as others in the community who understand arenas and could assist with the design. After the trip, we will have a facilities committee meeting to begin working on the layout. So I just wanted to bring this report to the board tonight because we need to begin digging into the details of the project. The major questions that we need to answer include, number one, where will the arena be located? I mean, that's a major piece. Number two, once the facility is built, how will it be managed and who will maintain it? Number three, would there be a willingness from the city of Central to partner with us on this project? So that's kind of where we are. I know the mayor's been in on a couple of talks that we've had with the senator, but if he wants to add anything to that, or if I missed anything, he can. We're very early in the stages, and we've not received any of the money from the state yet. I don't think we'll receive any of it yet. There is some paperwork that has to be completed very soon. You have to fill out a line of credit with the Attorney General's office. There's a number of pieces, and from my perspective, the main thing I'm trying to do is just put it on the table so that there can be a discussion and we can kind of, try and determine a direction for how to move forward. We obviously are going to use our facilities committee with this, but I will try to answer any questions that you have as best I can. And if anybody else wants to add anything on that, they can.
Well, I'm just going to give my thoughts, because this is just an opportunity, people to lay out their thoughts on where things should go. I think that it's very, very important that in the long haul, when this is all done, that the school system not be involved in the management and daily activities of this facility. And so therefore, to me, the best for people to do that would be the city. maybe someday we have our own independent parks association and the parks do it, I'm not sure, but it can't be the school board. The school board in the school system, Dr. Fountain needs to be spending his time educating our children and not doing this. And so, that being said, I think it's extremely important from the outset, from the get-go, that we partner with the city and not be, 3 months down the road, but I mean out of the gate from the start go. And that's why I invited all everybody on the council and the mayor here tonight, is I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are, because we need to work together hand in foot like, two pairs of gloves to go together. And there's some big first thing questions are, how are we gonna do that, and what structure, what CEA, cooperative agreement are we gonna do, who's gonna be involved in putting that together, whether it's gonna be the city attorneys, our attorneys, some of your council, some of the school board members, how that's gonna happen. We need people communicating, talking to each other, so that we can brainstorm and decide at some point down the road, we're gonna have some formal, cooperative meeting where we get it together and decide. But that being said, the school system does not have $2.4 million that's required for this match. In my opinion, the lands that we own are also not where this facility should be going. We own land up in Highway 64, a lot of land up there, 320 acres. We own 170 some odd acres on Jewel Street Road. But both of those are far away from interstates. They're not on very good roads. So to me, my vision, this needs to be somewhere on the south side, off the freeway or somewhere. But that's just me. I'm not saying that's what it will be. It's just my opinion. But so whereas that $2.4 million is going to have to come from somewhere else, not from the school system. We don't have it, and we don't have the land to give you. In my opinion, that's not where it should go. And we need to be thinking long term. What is the best place for this in the next 50 years, not just in the next 4 or 5 years. And so I'm interested in hearing other school board members, your thoughts. I'm interested in hearing anything from anybody in the public, particularly the council and the mayor, where you think we should go. Because there is a clock ticking, so to speak. In times past, money that was offered to the state didn't get spent in time, and lost. We don't want that to happen. We don't need to rush, today or this week. But in the next 3 to 5 months, we need to have a roadmap of where we're going. So I'll shut up.
Well, I agree with you, Dr. Holmes, and in fact, we've talked about this a good bit, and other board members too. There's a lot of things that just, you start thinking where we're going to do this and what we're going to do. That's why we need to start talking, because there's just a lot of decisions, and like the money bit, we can't spend money on things like this when we need to do things in the fashion. And so I think that's going to have to be decided somehow or way. Yes, sir.
Just a couple of questions. You talked about a visit to the one in Sulphur. When are we trying to look at that? And I mean, and basically what I'm saying is, do we do that before the next committee meetings and then try to have an open discussion at the committee meeting and do it in details at that time?
My first suggestion with the architects was, let's get together, let's bring people in who can sit down and have an opinion on the arena and so forth. His suggestion was, let's go visit some places first, then let's sit down and do it. I've been talking with him. We couldn't do it like this week or next week because we're just too crazy with the start of school. It's just not good for any of us to be gone. And But the date, I was talking to him some this weekend, the 30th was a tentative date that I was looking at, it's Tuesday the 30th. Oh, no, August, which is in 3 weeks from tomorrow. But that would be a possible date, that works for them, they're gonna get some bands together or something, whatever, and we're gonna, try to, map out something to the.
It would be my view that that's a jumping the gun, and I think we need to work with the city first to get, on the same page with each other. Yes, but that does need to happen in maybe 2 or 3 videos. But we don't even know what each other's thinking about what we want and what we think a venue should look like yet. But if we could somehow schedule a meeting between the 2 different governmental bodies, then obviously an open public meeting and make it more official. But, y'all are welcome to step up on the mic and give your thoughts here.
Well, I don't think we're jumping the gun by this at first. Many people don't even know what we're talking about. And what is
I don't even know what we're talking about.
Well, I've seen pictures of many of them. But, you see big arenas where you have rodeos and other kinds of meetings, they take up 10 to 15 acres. So I don't think you can have a good discussion until you see basically what the whole thing's worth. What's it gonna do? And we may have to set some guidelines. The one in Sulphur is not gonna be done for $12,000, I can tell you that right now. $12 million. Well, that's it for sure. Yeah, I don't think it will, with today's prices and those kinds of things. So I don't think we'd be jumping the gun by this thing. And then we would have some things to talk about. But some of you city people, and you may not even be interested at all. I mean, I don't know whether the city even wants to consider it. So, I see somebody wants to talk about it, so.
I mean, it wouldn't be any problem inviting, if we went, inviting public and.
No, and if we go, it again would be our facilities and equipment committee, which is a standing committee, which is open. I mean, you still follow open meetings law, so, I mean, the whole city could go if they wanted to, but we need people who understand arenas and horse world to help with this thing. I'm not that person, I'm sorry. But we need people that can help us, and there are people in Central who would love to be a part of helping design that. There's a lot of questions. Is it enclosed? Is it open? I mean, you're certainly going to be bordered by the money. I mean, that's going to limit what you can or can't do. But there's just so many questions in terms of what the facility would look like and how it's kind of.
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Ruby. I was giving the mayor a chance to get up and speak on his intentions on this. So I'll give you a bit of background and history. I was giving you permission, Mr. Mayor, I was waiting to see if you would speak. A few months ago, but not, then I'll yield to the mayor. No, I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Do you want to speak?
Yes.
Name and address.
David Barrett, 12229 Arrowwood Avenue. The superintendent and I have met with Senator White several times over the past couple of months to discuss this and get brainstorming. And that's exactly what we've done so far. It's just kind of brainstorming. Nobody has anything written in stone. I know the senator had modeled the funding for this after the one in Sulphur. That's the one he looked at and tried to appropriate the proper funds. But you're exactly right, Dr. Gardner. I think before you can do anything, you have to go out and see what some of the others are like. I was at Lamar Dixon a couple of weeks ago looking at their facility. Now, that's a giant. But when you go out there, you have the large one, you have the smaller one. They have about 3 different sizes. They have the big one that fits a lot of people, then you have one that fits about 2,500 people, then you have another one that fits about 4,000 people. And partially enclosed, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different designs. When you can go out and look at the one in Sulphur, I believe they looked at that one. You're probably looking at around with parking facilities and everything, you're probably looking around 20 to 25 acres. Right?
Yeah, what they told us was 15 acres for the arena, and I think they built that to begin with. And they told us, because I know Barbara called and spoke with their, the management operations person, they didn't make a lot of money on the arena piece. That was, more, maybe they didn't lose, but they were not making. So then they came back and they took another 15 acres. It was 15 acres for the arena, another 15 acres for like a conference center, maybe they called it. Some sort of conference or activity center. People would rent that for proms and things. And I believe they made substantial money off of that based on that. But again, now, you're talking 30 acres and probably twice the funds we have now, which we may get more next year. But again, there's just right now.
Right, and that's when you talk about being wide open, there's other things that you would want to sit down and discuss, what types of uses. I mean, it's not just for rodeo and horses. You want to look at other events. And that's exactly why the city, would be interested in some kind of agreement. But the city would also like to have some involvement in this because it's good for economic development for the city. Whether you want to bring in trade shows, not just, rodeos and things like that.
Do you see at the end of this that the city take over the management?
Well, we've discussed some things. I'm kind of like y'all. The city doesn't have time to get into managing an arena complex, but there are companies that do that. That you can pay to manage, and whether the city partners with the schools on that. I mean, that's all available, for discussions. And that's part of going to some of these other facilities and talking to them about how they do it. Who do they hire? Who do they do it? I know the one in Sulphur has its own board. It's not really run by the government, it's run by a board. But I think for both of us, it wouldn't be advantageous for us to try to get a staff member, to do it. It would definitely have to involve somebody in management that goes out and recruits these trade shows or events, that you want to have in there. But that is definitely something that the city would be interested in working with the school board on, at some point in the future. But like the superintendent said, it's hard to say anything or give any commitments right now because we don't know what it's going to look like, the size of it, where it's going, all that. We're just in the infancy of this. And these are all things that will evolve, through discussions that we'll have with you. But as far as the city wanting to be a partner in this, yes, it's good for the whole city in terms of economic development, events, all those different range of possibilities. And I think we need to hear from
Southwest Virginia. West Side, I'm not sure.
There's a few. There's the Southern Kinder. Fort Allen has a nice.
Fort Allen has a small, yes.
The Ritter.
But y'all would be willing to have some people go with us?
Oh, absolutely. We've already discussed that. In fact, I've already talked to several people that are in the arena business or like doing that, and they said they would be glad to come and offer their advice as well.
I think it's really important, it's just like anything else, having a dream, whatever that dream is, that vision that you have, you can focus on it and see what it is, then you just figure out, how am I gonna get there? And how am I gonna make it happen?
Right, because like the superintendent said, and when I talked to even the ones at Lamar Dixon, it's exactly right. The arenas that's not necessarily the money maker. It's the convention center or what you want to, maybe put by it. And again, that's all where location comes into play.
So what is if you could pick a place, where would you put it?
Well, I don't know right off the top of my head. That's something you got to, that's where you got to get the people that are involved to come in there and tell you. I mean, you want to look at these things of, well, do you want it on the thruway where it's easy access, or do you want it on Greenville Springs Road where you could maybe not only have an arena, but maybe turn that into some kind of RV park that would back up to the river, that would draw people. There's a lot of different ideas that people have been bringing to us, suggestions. And that's all things to sit down and talk about, brainstorm, get everybody's ideas, get the professional people that are involved, that'll tell you, hey, if you put it here, you have room to expand. Listen to those people who are the ones that know what they're talking about.
Do you have any
Match some of the land, but again, that's where you're gonna have to sit down and get your final cost in there. It's exactly what you want to do. You have to use it all, or you're gonna get something. It all depends on what size you want and what the other. And that's what
$12 million, and even if you added the 2.4 million match, wherever it just poops out of the sky someplace, it's not going to be done for 15 million. So, not the facility that I think would be attractive anyway. And so I just wonder, is the city going to step up to the plate and make up the difference? Because in my mind, if we don't have those type of assurances, you know, $20 million to do a decent job, ain't no money coming from the school system to make up the difference. You know, we can't afford that. So,
I think they need to let the flow dollar figures before we start saying.
you know, but
It may be a little premature to think that we.
There's
No,
also
I just-
another session coming up as well.
you can always say, yeah, we're committed to making up the difference, but I mean, I'm not putting a penny to it, but I'm very nervous for the school system. We get started down this and we end up, you know, using school dollars to pay for city economic development. And I'm just so opposed to that.
And one of the things that as you always listen, when we visit, you're welcome to visit. I don't know what kind of transportation we'll arrange. You make your own. You may want to make your own, but not that far south. These other places. But I think we need to look at more than one. And what their goals and objectives are as they try to do it.
So originally, we're gonna try to make it, you know, tentatively start on August 30th.
Yeah, if the board's fine with that, I'll work with David Abear and them to come up with some locations and work on that. We will make certain that it's put out so that anyone in the community who has an interest, it's certainly good that day.
Brigham Meyer, 15834 Blackstone Drive. I'd be more than happy to come on any trips or tours of other facilities just to see what's going on, to try to get some kind of design ideas. I'll also say that in District 5 in the city, the kind of more rural northern half, there's a lot of people that know a lot of things about or shows or bail races, and just in general, the kind of convention type center, activity center. So there's a lot of people out there that give you a lot of good input into all of them. They know the good and the bad. They probably create a perfect hybrid facility, or help in that. I can't speak for all of the council members, but I can tell you that you have my support in a partnership between the city and the school board. I've got a little experience with CEAs and the school board now, so I'd be happy to help in any way I can put that together. I won't render any official legal opinions, but I can tell you my thoughts for sure. The funding would be a part of it. I understand that the school system doesn't have money to spare on things that aren't directly geared towards the education effort. But luckily we were looking at doing something like this as a city anyway. We had actually discussed forming a committee to explore these options, and this kind of came to fruition. So I think it's a great opportunity for the city to partner with the school board and to get something accomplished here that'll benefit the city.
Will something that suits this few people be big enough for? rodeos?
That's a question.
I don't know.
Well, I would guess, based on what my investigation, yes, it would be.
For the smaller rodeos.
Yes, well, even the one they have at LSU, nobody goes to it. That's more.
Well, but the facility in the middle would have to be.
Well, yeah,
Mayor Merrill, I mean, my understanding this would also be a shelter place. And my understanding is things that if you meet all the qualifications and whatever, there can be some federal funding for a shelter, evacuation shelter. Is that true? Do you know anything about that?
Again, that would all be the scope of how this could be designed. I mean, we haven't gotten that far. I mean, that's what we're trying to go and look at what other people have done and see what could all the possible uses of this be.
But, I mean, is that a true statement that if it is, meets the federal standards to be an evacuation shelter, that there are potentially federal dollars to come along?
I would have to check on that and see. I mean, I know there's federal dollars for shelters. You know, we have to look at what we're doing to this to see, I mean, we just don't know right now what the intended use and how it's designed and all of that could be something that comes into play in consideration.
thank you. Yes, sir.
So, Wade Evans, 10652 Big Sur Drive. A bit of backstory, we did appoint a committee as a council to look into the feasibility, the funding, the location, and the economic development opportunities as well as quality of life improvements. The committee met a few times. We didn't get a lot of traction. And then we were fortunate to get Senator White's support for this, and he directed it to the schools. I don't know how the state money works. I'm glad he did. We'll figure that out. But in the process of that, I spoke to our planner, Philip Also Associates. He recommended the Thruway as being the prime location. Also, in speaking to promoters, the Thruway being a prime location because of the easy access to the interstate. Any arena that would host a rodeo and have seating for 4,000, 5,000, however many is intended, the intent, where this originally came from, was currently Central High goes to Hammond to graduate their classes. And what triggered this for me was, okay, well now the River Center, and I was thinking, as a city, we don't even have a place to graduate our high school. And there is an economic model based on destination economics. And just in talks with Kyle Rogers from the Lamar Dixon, the city of Gonzales, just from being in proximity to Lamar Dixon, generates another $10 million a year in sales tax revenue. And so it spurred the wheel in my head thinking we could generate more sales taxes for both the city and the school board, which is key. That's what the city survives on alone. It gives the demographers who say you got to have rooftop, rooftop, rooftop. When you bring 4,000 to 5,000 people to your city that don't live there necessarily, then you have an economic development plan that can capture that revenue without the rooftops. So we get the golden goose of economic development. We get generation of more sales tax dollars. We have more things for our citizens to do because with the increased headcount, we can sustain more businesses. So this is huge. And I sold out when I fought to appoint a committee and sponsored the legislation that passed the council 6-1 to look into this. So I'm all in as far as looking at the possibilities. And I just want to make sure that the school board understands. I think you'll get the support from the council for sure. And I'm glad to know the mayor, if it makes sense, will support it as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Got a question.
Yes.
Chris Beard. So at the end of the day, when this whole thing is done, who owns this?
Good question.
So there's that. So we've got a bucket of money that's $12 million.
That has been given to the school system. Okay. Now, what we'll talk in this thing is the management. From the things that I've heard, it could be a management board, it could be the city or some other. It won't be the city, it won't be the school board, I can tell you that. at least on this school board.
At present, the way it is, the school board will own it. The school system will own the thing, the facility, unless it is some way legally transferred to someone else.
So we could sell the asset and get a big coffer of money to go back to our school. Mr. Gardner, you said, I think so eloquently earlier, what does this have to do with, in our community, what does this have to do with educating our children? This could be a good way to actually generate, we build this thing with the money that we have, we outlay a little bit of risk, maybe we dip into a new fund. We build that and then we sell it to either the city if they're willing to buy, either that agreement beforehand, and then we put our coffers back and we put it back to the school system. I definitely don't think that us as school system.
There are some legal.
There's so many unknowns here, so it's real, but I do know from dealing with other things that even amongst governmental entities, you just can't give something from one to the other. It has to be sold at fair market value. And so that's why this is a big quagmire in my opinion.
Unless it goes to the legislature to allow.
Right, unless it goes to the legislature. And so my hope, my vision is after all this gets built, that there will be legislation to allow us to transfer this asset to the city. And our new parks, I would love to see us separate the track and have our own parks department and this be run through the park department. And that would be a great vehicle for them and everything, but that's me, that's my way to it. That's me.
Well, a lot of these things that what we're saying now, at least in my opinion, this, it could be this, or it could be that. We really don't know until we get, what we're saying is we need to get into it and find out more things. As we find those things out, we begin to lay some, and the architects will help us a lot of it, in terms of how much it costs and how much land you're going to have and what you want to do with it. So there's just a lot of more discussion has to take place.
Just one final question. The administration complex, was that contract, I'm going somewhere with this, the amount of that was like, what, 10 million?
No, the central office.
No.
Like seven. But that didn't include the stadium, right? So if you look at that, that's just a.
It did.
Oh, it did? Yeah. So if you look at just using that footprint, how many acres was that? You start kind of doing rough math and figure out what this kind of is gonna cost. So it's probably gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood.
We have no land costs. That's one thing we have to think about.
Because that's the reason, in my head, I'm thinking 10 million, is where I'm.
Just for land.
Just for the land to do that same thing. So if you start extrapolating that out, you're talking about close to 30 million, if we were gonna do something rather large. Now again, this all needs to be, worked out, but we gotta take a look at, well, we got this 12 million in a bucket. We gotta try to figure out how to multiply it.
I mean, 25 acres on the thruway is going to cost you, it's going for several $100,000 per acre. They say 200,000, that's going to cost you $5 million. Just for land.
Doesn't include the clearing, doesn't include the water.
That means $1,000 sometimes. And maybe really give some.
But it's
Yes,
just something that.
No, give some up and use.
I think all that needs to be talked about. Everything everybody said really needs to be brought into it. And right now, we don't know enough to make, I don't know enough to say, this is what we ought to do.
That's why I wanted more people to speak,
Yeah.
is the more we hear from everybody, the more brainstorming that happens, the better product we're going to end up in the long run.
I would like to see us go, visit, and come back, bring it to committee, and just spend the night just doing this. Spend the night, I'm serious, with having everybody come in.
Come in your PJs, huh?
Have a lot of it.
Dr. Gardner, I feel that this is a tremendous asset to Central to be able to get an arena such as this, but I do have some real concerns. I see that this would be a much better city project than a school board project. But I know the way it's set up, the money has to go through the school system. But I think we really need to get some legal advice on how we're gonna do this, because it wouldn't be fair for it to go through the school board, build it, and then say, okay, the city's gonna get it, but then they would have to buy it, because we couldn't just donate it to the city, could we?
No.
But there could be
So I think
legislative
those
action.
things need
Yeah,
to be
they
done.
could be
The legislature can do it, if you could get it through that. You got the money, you ought to be able to get that, but I don't know. We just have to go with what the law says now. And you're right, you cannot donate it.
So I think we need to try to see how we can do this.
I think that needs to be part of the discussion, absolutely. Any other further comments from the board, audience? Nobody wants to abandon it. Okay, that item, that was to receive information, and we've got lots of it, but no answer. Okay, next item is to consider approval of a list of qualified disciplinary hearing officers. Dr. Pound.
So, Mr. President, staff has prepared a pool of hearing officers utilized for the 22-23 school year. We are required by Act 570 to assemble a pool of hearing officers. This is essentially if a tenured teacher is terminated and they wish to challenge that, there's a hearing process. It's standard, and we have to do this every year. So we have this list, and we're just asking you to approve it like this list.
Motion to approve the list.
Any other comments? Yeah, it's, any comments from the audience? Something we have to do. Okay. Hearing no comments, then without. Okay, without any objection, then the approved list is 20. Okay, the next item is to receive the results from the superintendent's yearly evaluation. Ms. Brown.
The Central Community School Board went into executive session on Monday, July the 11th, to discuss Superintendent Fountain's evaluation for the preceding year. The superintendent rated a 2.93 out of a possible 3.0. We did express some concerns to Jason regarding some discipline issues. The Central Community has a long history of highly disciplined schools and expects no less today with its discipline. Jason took total responsibility for these concerns and assured us that plans were in place for the coming year for these concerns to be addressed. The board realizes that society today is much different from society 25 years ago. Parents are different, therefore students are different. The superintendent, our principals, and our teachers are challenged today as never before by situations that many of us could never have imagined. Now, that being said, over the last 15 years, the members of this board have traveled far and wide, from Boston to California, from New Orleans to San Antonio to Chicago, and we have been exposed to superintendents all over the United States. We feel as if we have the best. With his leadership qualities, his energy, and his enthusiasm, this school system will continue to march toward greatness. Our only hope is that the new board members who come on board realize what a gem we have in Jason Fountain and support him in a way that makes this system continue to grow and prosper. We have seen the rest, and I can assure you that Jason Fountain is the best. That concludes my report. He almost walks on water.
In lieu of that, the next item is to consider an extension of the superintendent's contract And I have asked the attorneys to put together that, and we have a document which would, now, let me tell you something. The state law says that this board cannot extend his contract more than 2 years beyond our term of office, which is December 31st. So I would like to recommend that we extend his contract to December the 31st, 2024. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second that. We all
I
second
got all
that.
kinds. Any comments? Anybody have any comments or thoughts? Any thoughts from the audience? None. Then that contract will be extended and signed by me and you and that's it.
I'm sure meeting the principals here are very excited about this.
Well, I mean, with their glasses.
Okay, the next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Fountain.
Well, first of all, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and Ms. Browning, the kind words. This board has been so supportive of me from day one, and I tried to say that this morning at our convocation because I want everybody to know how important they are. We work very well together. Y'all challenged me when I need to be challenged, and y'all when I need to. We have an awesome working relationship, and I appreciate all of y'all doing that. We're doing that. Couple items in the superintendent's report, not to belabor this, because this is probably the longest board meeting that we've had. I know since I've been superintendent, but so I'll go through this quickly, but I can answer any questions that you might have. We held our annual administrative retreat on Monday, July 25th at LSU. We had a great time together planning for the upcoming school year. We had nearly 40 principals and APs and other leaders at our schools together for a great day of fellowship and growth. It was an excellent day. Of course, today we had our annual back-to-school convocation this morning over with our friends at Greenville Springs Baptist Church. We had breakfast together, we laughed, some of us cried, I don't know if anybody else cried there, but I might have had a tear or two. And we had a wonderful kickoff to the new year. Many thanks to the people over at that church. I'm telling you, Greenville Springs, the way they support us for the convocation every year, they serve breakfast. They must have had 50 volunteers there this morning. They just did an amazing job. And, Mike Davis, we work very closely with him. He's just helped us so much. So we really appreciate that. Had a great kickoff this morning. As I mentioned at the convocation this morning, our middle and high school teachers completed 2 days of Capturing Kids' Hearts training. This will be our Tier 1 approach for building healthy relationships between our staff and students. The goal of Capturing Kids' Hearts is to implement a process that helps our students develop productive behaviors, build and maintain positive relationships, and set and achieve goals. We're very excited about the implementation of the Capturing Kids' Hearts program. We're in the final stages of our Phase 1 Reimagine grant. We've talked about this a number of times, but our first cohort of 94 students will begin in our Wildcat College program this fall. It's a great number to begin with. So we're completing our Phase 1 initiative, which was about $300,000. This helps create the foundation of the program. The final phase, providing approximately $870,000, which we are about to begin that phase, will provide sustainability for the program. So, I mean, Chandler, Ms. Younger, Brandon, them in the high school, they have put a lot of time into planning this program out, and really it's going to start in the early years, helping our kids who are the highest achievers have a chance to move forward. So we're very excited about our Wildcat College program. This summer we began letters training for our K-3 teachers and the admin team. This professional development will provide training in the science of reading. This is mandated by Act 108. And this will be for our teachers to learn a research-based approach to teaching our youngest students how to read. This will be a 2-year process to include 8 days of professional development for our teachers and administrators. It's a big project, but we think it will be positive. Of course, Thursday is the first day for students. All students at CIS, CMS, and CHS will attend on day 1. Bellingrath and Tanglewood will have a staggered start. So our pre-K and first grade students will attend on Thursday, you have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, and then kindergarten and second grades will attend on Friday. This really helps them at Bellingrath and Tanglewood get the kids there, manage them, and figure out how they get home at the end of the day. So, and then Monday we'll all be back together where everyone is attending. Finally, we've been holding committee meetings on Wednesday night for many years. Recently, we've discussed the possibility of moving our committee meetings to a different night of the week to prevent conflict with those who attend church on Wednesdays. We believe that Monday night would be the best option. This way, our board meetings would be on the second Monday of the month, and our committee meetings would be on the last Monday of the month. So if everyone's agreeable with this, we will begin this new schedule this month. So therefore, this month, our next committee meetings would be on Monday, August 29th. And there's not really on this. We've talked about this at a number of our meetings and committee meetings, so that'll be when we have our next committee meeting. Finally, Chandler and I will be presenting at the chamber meeting this Wednesday at noon as well. Schools in the area will have a few minutes to kind of show what's going on in our schools, so we'll be there. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Any questions, board members? Okay, the announcements have already been made, but I'll repeat them. Committee meeting, the next one will be on Monday, August 29th, and the next regular school board meeting will be on September 12th. Do we have anything, any other announcements in the Anybody want to have a meeting?